I think I understand. Try to describe the two.
Yeah, understand. No, what I did not know. Open speech, right?
你不要讲两话，可能给自己觉得。
Okay, Brian, have a seat. We will start now. Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to Sydney Blockchain Center. It's very good to see you again. And yes, Sydney Blockchain Center comes back, but we're still not sure when we will have the event next because the COVID-19, the micro. So let's cherish this event. So for this event, we have two, interesting and talented speakers for us. When I saw their slides, I cannot wait to see their presentations. And before that, we got Victor Jiang to give an opening speech. And yeah, let's welcome Victor Jiang.
Thanks. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to see people face to face here. As Hubert said, we've had this space pretty much vacant for a year and a half because of lockdowns and so on. And as I was just mentioning to some of you beforehand, it's just never the same to have face to face interactions over beers and food as opposed to over Zoom. So it's great to see you face to face. And we do hope we can do this more often in the new year, subject to obviously COVID developments and so on. So a very quick background about myself, the center, and what we're about and what we're looking to build in terms of the community before the main star event. So Victor Jiang, one of the co-founders of Sydney Blockchain Center with Hubert and another Victor Huang. And we are pretty passionate believers of the force for transformative change of blockchain technology for all of society. We have held those views for many, many years now. So what I do as a day job is I'm a venture capitalist. I'm the founding partner of Safety Ventures, a fintech and blockchain focused venture capital firm headquartered here in Sydney, but with offices in Melbourne, Silicon Valley, Shanghai, and Jakarta also this year. So we have been growing, and we have been making blockchain equity investments since late 2016. That I think that makes us one of the earliest blockchain investing venture capitalists in Australia. Now, obviously, we don't only look at Australian deals. We look at as much as possible global deals, but ones where we can add some proactive value for this region or throughout know-how and our value add. And one of the biggest value add that I believe a community can bring is the relationships, the ecosystems, the potential to build new links, new collaborations, new partners, new team members, new customers, and of course, new investors. So this is why community, especially in the blockchain world, is absolutely central to commercial success. So we saw, a group of us saw an absolute paramount critical link, if you will, between commercial success and building successful and viable communities. And that's why we spend a lot of time, energy, and sometimes our own money to promote a community like Sydney Blockchain Center, which, by the way, is part of a much bigger global blockchain hubs around across 26 countries. So we do have some significant international linkages and channels to connect folks who are interested in learning more about blockchain as an ecosystem, as a new global wave, I suppose. Entrepreneurial opportunities, job opportunities, investment opportunities, so forth and so forth. And there's plenty of that here. And beyond what you see physically here today, there's a much bigger multi-thousand strong membership online or contact community online, which in itself is a node in a much bigger network, and two of which I'll just mention very briefly before we hand over. One of the communities, as I said, is a global network of blockchain nodes across 26 countries. So that's a lot of blockchain enthusiasts, developers, crypto traders. There's a fair bit of those. So we are here in Australia affiliated with the Melbourne Blockchain Centre and Bitcoin Brisbane, which is now rebranded as Blockchain Brisbane. And we regularly co-host events virtually and sometimes simulcast physically. The other community that I want to briefly share with you guys is Caretsu Forum, or Caretsu Forum Australia, which is one of 54 chapters of Caretsu Forum globally, which is a global private investors and angel investor network. So I signed up to be a chapter president of Caretsu Forum for Australasia back in 2018. We're one of the youngest and probably smallest of chapters for Caretsu Forum, but globally Caretsu it has been around since 2000, so 21 years old. Headquartered in Silicon Valley, has 54 chapters around the world in every major continent, and over 300,000 accredited investors in a very structured chapter style network. And to be a Caretsu investor member, you actually have to vet yourself to be accredited, but be an active investor. And many members of Caretsu are actually investment firms like venture capital firms or family offices rather than just individuals. So imagine 300,000 of them around the world, funding on average over 1,000 companies a year around the world. And in 2020, if my memory serves me correct, within Caretsu Forum, they facilitated 750 million USD of investment into said companies. So Australia is a tiny dot in a massive global network that we have an entrenched access to. And as part of Caretsu Forum, there is a internal version of like a LinkedIn for Caretsu. It's called Caretsu Connect. It's a mobile app that people can download, and through that, if you sign up, there's different levels of membership. You can sign up to be a free member, but the full opportunity of suite of offerings and value really unlocks when you become a paid member, a few $1,000s a year, to get global access to deal flow, swarm intelligence, due diligence on deal flow, as well as syndicate investing opportunities and subject matter experts to assist in a given project. So given there's over 300,000 of them globally, chances are you probably will be able to find the relevant subject matter expert to help out in a particular project. So we do have, all of that is just to say that we do have some pretty scalable ways to access additional relationships and resources, and quite possibly capital as well, through the connections that hopefully you can build up here at Sydney Blockchain Centre today and going forward. So with that, I'd like to once again thank everybody for coming along. Hope to see you face to face more often going forward into 2022. And now I'd like to pass the floor to Clement for the main act.
Thank you very much for the intro, Victor. So I'm Clement, and I'm an engineering manager at Immutable, and I work on Immutable X, which launched in April this year. So it's super new, but it has actually grown tremendously in the few months that it has been out, and is now one of the top 100 tokens in the world. So pretty cool. So here I'm today to share an intro to metaverses, the role of NFTs in the metaverse, and also where does Immutable kind of fit into this ecosystem. Cool. So Immutable's mission is to make digital worlds real. So I thought this was a great image from one of my favorite movies, Ready Player One. And so what does that actually mean? Right. So this is just a brief agenda of like what we'll be going through today. So what's a metaverse? How can you be part of the metaverse and sort of the role of NFTs? We'll go through a couple of controversial areas as well, and again, Immutable and where we fit in. Cool. So we'll start with what is a metaverse. So to me, a metaverse really is kind of a form of escape where you can kind of discover and express yourself in new ways that you can't do in the real world. And I think that's amazing. Sometimes we don't really like reality, so the metaverse
recording in progress.
An amazing system to have going forward. Put another way, it's when the experiences are greater than what you can experience in the real world due to physical limitations and so on. So I thought this was kind of like a cool gift to show. Like we're working really hard all the time, and then next we can be fighting monsters like in Sword Art Online here and feeling like a boss. So that's the metaverse to me. So some key characteristics of a metaverse in my mind is, so it has to be expansive. So there's a lot to discover in the metaverse, whether that's like 2D, 3D, VR. I think there should be lots to discover. It's often also virtual, hence you can add all of these cool things on. It's usually social as well, and you can forgive the Facebook animation there. Like I guess the community is not always big fans of Facebook, but I thought they had a cool animation of being social. And then it's also persistent as well. So persistent, is a really key characteristic, especially for user-generated content in a metaverse, because if it's not persistent, the next time you log in and your creation's gone, you're like, I'm out of here, like this is not really cool. My baby's gone. So I think those are the key characteristics for a metaverse. So expansive, virtual, social, and also persistent. Cool. But why should you care about the metaverse? I can see like the emojis are not showing up here, but clearly don't do enough testing for this. So it's a more immersive gaming experience, and we'll get into that briefly. We've got virtual office spaces. So you've got immersion on Oculus Quest, for example, where you can have office in VR. I think that's pretty cool. We've got virtual world tours, especially helpful in COVID. And we've got new opportunities for marketing your products and presenting real world products. Some of the examples here I give. So for example, you can go and buy a $10 kids toy from Toys R Us, right? And it's like just a piece of plastic, can't really do much with it. But with the metaverse, this could be an NFT, and then when you scan it, you get something in a metaverse, and that $10 piece of plastic suddenly becomes a whole new experience in that metaverse, where you can interact with it. You can, use that, toy horse to ride somewhere, for example. So I think it's going to give a lot more value to physical products as well. I don't think it's going to replace them. I think it's going to add a lot more value. And then, there are simple items that you can transform into other cool things, like turning a piece of plastic into a real Halo gun, for example, and running around your house and shooting blasters at your family. And then you can also try out clothes before buying them online. Pretty cool stuff. You can socialize anonymously as well, which might be important to this community, anonymity. We're having talks with people online these days. They want virtual avatars. They don't want to show their face, so something like this would be really cool. Then, we have greater creative freedom. There's limitations in the physical world of what you can create, but artists have crazy imaginations, and I think the metaverse will really help with that. and there's ownership and economic opportunities, which we'll get into shortly. I think also like a lot of mental health benefits as well that a lot of people don't talk about, but we'll cover that shortly as well. And yeah, there are many, many more, which I won't go through. Cool, so interacting with Metaverse. I think a slide's missing here, but essentially like how you can interact with the Metaverse. I don't think, we think of the Metaverse as VR, like usually, because that's the coolest thing, it's the most high tech, it's the most immersive, but there's also, 2D mobile, there's augmented reality and so on as well. So I think our definition of Metaverse doesn't need to be confined to just VR, although that's what sells in movies because it's cool. Sweet. So then the next part I want to dive into a bit is, how important is gaming to the Metaverse? So one of the big things I see gaming playing a role in for the Metaverse is bringing in that huge trench of like early adopters, right? Because the way I see it is gamers are already so involved into their own metaverses and their lore and the game, they want to jump at the opportunity to have an even more immersive experience. So because of this, they're going to be the ones who really drive the metaverse adoption early on, right? So you're going to jump on board, buy VR headsets, augmented reality, toys, etc. They're happy to spend to get these cool experiences. In terms of the space and where it's at now, we've got a lot of like smaller studios which have recently got a lot of funding, so they're not quite so small anymore. So we've got Axie Studio, we've got Sandbox Studio, and we've also got Immutable Studio. And we are, pioneering the space. And essentially, we're going to show the big guys what you can do with blockchain, right? Like, we're going to show them what's play to earn, how do you use NFTs, and how do you expand on the metaverse. But the AAA studios are not far behind. So we've got Activision, Blizzard, EA, and Riot, who have all jumped onto NFTs recently. I don't know if you've seen the announcement, but this is going to be a huge push to get the mainstream consumer onto the blockchain and NFTs. So this was a video which I'm not sure if it's going to play, but essentially this was a video to show that gamers really want to immerse themselves in the lore. And so essentially this was supposed to be a video of people doing a skit of PUBG, right? Where they want to feel like they're in the world, where they're dodging the blue fields and everything. So yeah, gamers are going to jump at that opportunity to get into the metaverse. The other thing as well is also utility. So gamers and games have a lot of utility. The items in games have a lot of utility. And as we'll see later in a later slide, this is going to be really important in the drive and where I see NFTs going forward in the future. So with games, I think most of us played some sort of game here before, and we can relate to the utility of potions, recipes, combination of items. So for example, which we'll get into later, how you can use two NFTs, combine them into one, and so on, and that produces utility. We've got access or membership to specific areas or services within the metaverse. For example, a particular transport tier or fast travel, that kind of thing. And then we've got the resale value of items, shared ownership, guild governance, that kind of thing. Cool. So then we've got user-generated content. So why is user-generated content important for the metaverse? So I think it's going to allow people to create buy-in, right? So essentially, when you've created something in the metaverse, you feel invested, not just economically, but also emotionally as well. And that's going to bring you back into the metaverse going forward. And I think user-generated content is really important. And I think combined with NFT ownership, people can build digital empires. They can solve real problems in the digital world. So I think once the games get a bit more complex and the problems get more complex, the developers might not be the first ones to solve the problem. It might be users who are the first ones to solve the problem. And because they have that first market advantage, for example, they can build a digital empire within the metaverse. And I think that's really, really cool. Yeah, they might be someone really shy in real life, but they could be the richest person in this metaverse, which I think is really cool. And yeah, just to kind of show a brief glimpse of current existing metaverses and how they don't incorporate blockchain and they kind of keep it in a, how do I say, like bubble where they don't let you leave the ecosystem. So one example is EVE Online. So EVE Online is actually a game that bans you from selling your items for real cash or like exchanging your ISK, which is the in-game currency, for real cash as well. A lot of users have to go to black markets or third-party sites to go and exchange that to bring real-world value back into their lives so they can improve it. And they risk their accounts getting banned. And I think this is the old Web 2 version of a metaverse. And we'll look at how NFTs can improve that as well. Yeah, so yeah, this was, I should have gone to the slide, but yeah, essentially this is showing how you can extract value from the metaverse that you've invested a lot of time in. Right now, I invest a lot of time. I don't get anything back apart from entertainment value. But going forward, you can improve your real world as well. Cool. Then, how will NFTs change the metaverse? So can I just get maybe a raise of hands of like people who have heard of NFTs or like know what NFTs are? Okay, pretty much everyone, everyone here. So maybe we can like fast forward through this one and like maybe in a future presentation or something, we can go through like the technical side of NFTs if that's of interest. So just quickly, NFT is a tokenized representation of a digital or real world asset on the blockchain, and it's usually unique as well. There may be many copies of a similar asset. So for example, these change cards here, but each individual one of them is tracked by their like blockchain serial number, or a token ID in the contract. Cool. So then the benefits, so real world improvements. So Steam has recently come out and said, we're not supporting NFTs and we're not getting into blockchain. They obviously have a massive ecosystem of digital assets across all their games and titles. And for them to come out and say this is quite a big deal. So compare them to blockchain native games such as Axie Infinity, if you've heard of them. And then we've got Gods Unchained and Guild of Guardians, which come from Immutable Studio as well. So the biggest thing here is it's going to allow people to cash out their in-game earnings and allow them to improve their real-world lives, whether it's like Axie players in the Philippines who are actually feeding their families by playing Axie. And I think that's seriously cool, and it's going to lift people out of poverty. And if Steam doesn't catch on, you might want to short their stock. or I don't think they're listed, but yeah. Cool. So I think it's not going to be a hobby anymore, it can be a career. And also more importantly for the average player, you don't need to be a pro at the pro circuit to make real money out of the game. And I just want to show you a couple of notes from our users on Discord who have shown that this has really changed their lives. So we've got the Filipino community, like living off playing games, essentially. And then we've got one person here on the right who plays Gods Unchained, and essentially that's allowed him to get through a very serious health condition. It's funded his medical treatment, which is crazy. And I think when we all saw this, we were just very emotional and happy. I think it motivates you to put in the hours when you see something like that. Then we've got another one here as well. Became unemployed, but GU became his source of income. And I think this is going to be huge going forward. And it's really cool to say, I play games to support my family. I do what I love, and that's really cool.
Esports is a little similar, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's the biggest difference. It's like right now you can make money in games if you are like super pro and elite, but the average player can't make enough money, like or no money at all. They probably waste more money than they make money. Giving money to Steam. So I think this is going to be huge because the average player can still trade and sell assets and still have things that have utility. And I think it's going to change the game, especially for the average player.
What's that income look like on an average player that say plays a certain amount of hours a month, right? So per day, let's say, a couple hours a day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different per game. I don't have the exact numbers for you at this stage. But I think like there are, just to give you an idea of the scale, there's like a couple of VC funds that opened recently in New York that are specialized purely in funding guilds in Axie. So essentially what they do is they pull a bunch of ETH together and they essentially buy cards or give this ETH to the manager of the guild. They buy the cards and distribute it amongst their Axie players. And they go and use that money to earn the guild money, in which then they get paid. So it's pretty huge. I think that company just raised about 3 million USD, so it's quite a lot of money in it. Yeah, I hope I haven't answered it directly, but hopefully that helps. Yeah, and then the other one as well. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Question on that, because there's a lot of games coming on the market right now.
Yeah.
Would you think this explosions of games will have a agility to really go on and
Yeah, that's a good question. So just to repeat it, there's a lot of games coming out at the moment on the blockchain. Like, do all of them have the ability to be long lasting? That's probably the same with games now. You really have to have a good game, a good tokenomics model to make that game last for ages. So I don't think the game design part has changed too much. It's more like the economic side has changed. So if you're a studio producing bad games in the Web 2 world, you're probably still going to be a bad studio producing bad blockchain games.
But if you have a bad games, but you got a good tokenomics, would that work, or what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. If people are making a lot of money on it, I'm sure they'll stick around. Like, if I was making $1 million off playing a really bad game, I would probably do it. So, yeah. I don't have a direct answer for you. We'll just have to see how that plays out over time. And yeah, I think the other benefit really I see with NFTs coming into Metaverse is it's going to bring a lot of revenue. I think it's going to bring a lot of revenue to developers, both the original developers of the game and also creators of user-generated content as well, to kind of fund their operations either in the Metaverse or in the real world developing the Metaverse going forward. And I think that's going to be absolutely huge as well. So game developers don't need to rely on, and I say this with Victor here, but going to investors to raise massive rounds.
Crowdfunding.
Yeah, exactly. Crowdfunding investors. And also doing it whilst people are getting a benefit from the items as well. And so users get a direct benefit at the same time. Cool. So then now we move on to NFTs and how they will change. So right now, having seen a lot of NFT projects at Middle, a lot of the market right now is kind of focused on PFPs. And if you're not sure what that means, it's what's it called? Picture for profile projects. Essentially, they generate a bunch of NFTs that look very similar but with different characteristics, and you can prove the validity of your ownership on the blockchain. So the market's kind of dominated by this at the moment. A lot of it doesn't really have utility. It's more speculative investments we'll see who holds the bag last, essentially. So, we've got tweets going up now as well, like people asking, when is the PFP craze gonna blow up? Like, when's the bubble gonna happen? So that's kind of where the NFT community is at right now. But I think going forward, there's going to be a much bigger focus on utility. And because these assets have utility and value, it's not going to be a bubble, because people are actually investing into something they can use to create more value. So I think this is where the market's going to go going forward. And gaming is going to be a huge part of that, as we mentioned before, because of the intrinsic value of the items in those games, right? If I want to go and fight a boss, I'm going to buy a potion because I don't want to die. That's utility to me. Cool. Then we've got a couple of other topics as well related to the metaverse. So we've got identity in the metaverse. So this one's going to be really controversial, especially amongst like the blockchain community, right? So anonymity is one of the biggest things about a metaverse, right? Like you can go from reality where everyone knows you, they expect certain things from you, you've kind of built up this image of you, and then you can go into the metaverse and be a completely different person, right? And that's one of the huge selling points of having a metaverse. But at the same time as well, that anonymity can also be used to like have harmful effects, like cyberbullying, right? Scams. And this is something that I think we'll figure out over the next 5 to 10 years, and it might vary between company and their employees' values, where they sit on this spectrum. But this is going to be something that we're going to have to think about as we build these metaverses going forward. Where do we want to sit on the spectrum? The super hardcore crypto native guys, they're not going to want KYC. So, yes.
Interesting. My daughter's all over Roblox, right? Roblox.
Yeah.
And she come in tears the other day because someone had got into her account and taken all her pets.
Oh, gosh.
I thought we only had one dog in the house. Supposedly we've got a lot more online. And she was in tears, but luckily she was able to, pull back a profile.
Yeah.
But I would expect in this anonymity first protection, the blockchain allows you then to protect your assets in that regard, right?
Yeah, so you definitely do get that from the blockchain, right? So obviously you don't want to like share your private key or publish it to a repository or something like that. But assuming you follow very standard blockchain practices, it's going to be a lot harder for people to get access to your assets, especially if the game that you are building is built on top of a secure layer 1 like Ethereum. Right, so Ethereum is completely very decentralized, and that's a huge benefit of Ethereum. So it's going to be very hard for people to hack Ethereum and take the assets, for example, in your daughter's case. Whereas if you build on some of these other blockchains, which trade off security and decentralization for faster transaction times or more transaction volume.
Are we talking Solana?
I'm not going to say anything, but you can put the blockchain insert here. We're hugely fans of Ethereum and the decentralization of Ethereum and the security that it provides people. So that's kind of where we stand.
Cool. Would you mind to go into the technicalities or the technical challenges for that? Because Ethereum, for all the reasons you just mentioned, is slow, it's high gas, it's not very scalable at high volume.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a slide originally in the presentation to talk about scaling money. So we can expand on that in another presentation as well, but briefly, there are a few ways of scaling ETH. Right now, ETH has, I think, 10 to 15 transactions per second average. Yeah, so obviously that's not going to support like any application at all, even a small size. So
Real world.
yeah, any real world application. So there are a few ways of scaling it, you know, so we've got roll-ups, so we've got ZK roll-ups, we've got optimistic roll-ups, we've also got plasma chains and side chains, all which kind of like take that data somewhere else, do some initial processing before committing it back onto the chain in one go, with sort of like, yeah, so you generate these proofs, cryptographic proofs, and you can then on chain. But if you're keen to know more about the technicals, we can do another session and do a deep dive onto that and what that looks like. So yeah, let the organizers know. If you
What
want to
about the ETH2?
sorry,
The ETH2 version?
ETH2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ETH2 is going to bring a lot of scaling to layer 1, but I don't think it's going to be enough to support like the amount of decentralized apps that are being built on ETH. So
Do you know what will be the EPS on that?
I think currently they're saying 100,000 per second. We'll have to see if that actually manifests. But I think it's been sort of talked about that is probably going to play together. So these layer 2 scaling solutions are going to work together with ETH2 as opposed to replacing it to create a much more scalable solution together. Any other questions? Then we've got some other ethical challenges as well. So immersion versus addiction. If you're developing a metaverse, you want it to be as immersive as possible, right? You want to bring them in to contribute to your economy over and over again. But as we've seen with something like Facebook, this can get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. Because if you start optimizing for immersion, depending who you ask, they might tell you it's an addiction. So I think it's like two sides of the same coin. And again, this goes back to the community and the founders of the company, the developers, and it's going to vary from company to company, but it's one of the challenges that we're going to have to try and solve, because how immersive do you want to be versus like how much do you want to help your users, right? So I think, a really good quote from, again, Ready Player One, that was when I realized as terrifying, painful as reality can be, it's also like the only place where you can find true happiness, because reality is real. And I think sometimes we got to think about that addiction aspect as well, just to talk about that. Cool. Then another sort of interesting part as well is content moderation. So usually when you have like a decentralized application or a DAO as well, a decentralized autonomous organization, you can decide as a group what kind of content you want to permit. But whether you decide it as a DAO or whether you decide it as a development team, this is going to be a question that you're going to run into as we have with Immutable. Sometimes decentralized, you're going to say, hey, whatever content you post there, like we shouldn't do anything about it. It's part of the network. We should just leave it there. But is there going to be content that is so vulgar that there just needs to be a limit for you to say, hey, like we're just not accepting any of this. So, for example, like child pornography or like those kind of content, like glorifying murder photos. I mean, it sounds really bizarre, but we've seen it, and it's going to be a question that you have to ask yourself: where do you draw the line? Because one community is going to expect full decentralization, and the other is going to expect you to hold to some sort of values and standards. So you might face that problem yourself as well. Cool. Then we'll jump into the final part, which is how does Immutable fit into this picture? So we've talked about play to earn, and we've talked about the benefits of that. We are doubling down on play to earn. Immutable started as a game studio and launched Gods Unchained, which was one of the first blockchain games. And we're doubling down on that, and we're launching Guild of Guardians as well. And we really want people to be able to earn while playing and enjoying it at the same time as well. It's pretty cool. I think we've got a lot of buy-in. I think we had like a few $100,000 NFTs, which sold out in like 10 seconds. It's pretty crazy. So I think, we're doubling down on play to earn and what that means for the community. Cool. Then we've got the Immutable X protocol, which is separate to the Immutable Studios. So essentially, it's a protocol to power the metaverse and NFTs. And essentially, why did we create this? Our experience with blockchain games on ETH is that it's incredibly expensive to transfer your assets from one player to another and to do really cool things with it, right? So based on that, we created a protocol to essentially cut the gas prices by using the technologies that we talked about before, such as ZK rollups, to scale ETH so that we can do, I think currently about like 9,000 TPS instead of ETH's 10 or 15 TPS. And essentially we also make it gasless for our users as well. So right now, if you want to do a transaction on ETH to transfer an NFT, sometimes it can cost up to $100. And if you want to register your NFT contract, or if you want to mint an NFT, it can cost you beyond that, right? But we give this to you gas-free. So you can mint 1 million assets for free, which is unheard of in this space. So we are built to power the metaverse and all of the asset and all of the content that that's going to generate. So ETH2 is going to release proof of stake as well, which is going to help with essentially the energy usage of blockchain. And we've also got Jerry who's coming up later as well and talking about the environment. And so essentially Immutable X, we purchased a lot of carbon credits as well, try and offset all of the gas and mining costs that we use to commit our validity proofs on chain. So this means when you use Immutable X, you're actually carbon neutral. Your operations at that point is carbon neutral, which is really cool. So yeah, we can do Immutable X is floatable in green metaverse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that Immutable X, once you are in the platform, it's a zero fees.
Yeah. So
but the question is that how your business model works when compared to OpenSeas or whatever.
Yeah. That's a good question. So the question there was, once your assets are on Immutable X, it's free to transfer and trade and that kind of thing. So what is our business model compared to OpenSea? So we do have when you make a transaction or you buy an asset, there are royalty fees, there are trading fees, but that is kind of offset onto the buyer of the NFT. So you as a seller, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay upfront costs to list your asset. So you don't have to pay the gas cost as well to list your asset, which is good.
And you use ZK rollup.
Yeah, so ZK rollups, you can kind of think of it as kind of something that happens in the background that users don't really need to know about. Essentially, we take all the transactions that would have happened on L1 directly, and we bundle them up into a giant mathematical proof that says, hey, I can validate that these are the balances for these users at this point in time, and we commit that onto chain. So that's the technical side, but essentially I take all these transactions, group them up, and do them in one transaction. And the technicals as well is that we put all of this data into the core data of the smart contract to save gas as well.
How many times would you do that? Daily or?
Yeah, it depends on essentially the transaction volume that we're doing. Right now, I think we're doing it like, I think every 4 hours or so, and it's like 600,000 max per batch. Like, yeah.
I don't know, how do users get their money effectively onto this?
Yeah, absolutely.
They still have to go through ETH and pay that gas to get on it.
Yes, so unfortunately, to lock your assets into immutable, so there are a couple of ways. So if you're talking about ERC20s or ETH, then you have to deposit into our contract. Then you'll pay a small gas fee of I think like 30 USD, which is the standard ERC20 or ETH transfer cost at the moment. And then once you're on there, you can trade your ERC20s and stuff. Depends on how many times you want to add deposit onto Immutable X. However,
How about if you have a fee of Australian dollars?
yeah, so we're actually launching a new feature soon, which will allow you to buy crypto directly from our platform and upload it onto your Immutable X, and I think that's gas free as well. So that's a really cool way to get into it. And also what we want to encourage is for assets to be minted directly onto L2. So not minting to L1 first and then transferring it to L2. So minting straight onto the L2 solution. Because yeah, if you mint onto L1 anyway, like it's not that not that helpful. But you can always withdraw your assets to L1 and put it back in if you want. But ideally the starting point is on L2 so that you save all that gas. Sweet. Then we will talk about liquidity as well. So liquidity is kind of a challenge in the NFT space, right? So when you go to like a Forex market or something and you want to trade your currencies like Japanese yen for US dollars or something, right? There's like trillions of dollars flowing around and you can pretty much buy the currency that you want at any time. But with NFTs, it's kind of like artwork, you know, at Christie's or something, where you're going to get a couple of buyers who may or may not be interested, right? So this is a challenge that Immutable X is trying to overcome for this space as well, right? So what we're doing is we have a shared order book across the whole protocol. So if you list your asset on Marketplace A, you can also see the same listing on Marketplace B, right? And Marketplace B and Marketplace A may cater to completely different niches, right? So one might be an APAC marketplace, or one might be a gaming-focused marketplace, and another one is just like a specific region within the country. But they all have access to the same assets and can contribute to the liquidity pool of these NFTs.
Can those NFTs then be fractionalized down so it actually allows even more chance of liquidity?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So the question there was, can it be like fractionalized into sort of like financial derivatives,
Yes.
So that there can be even more liquidity? And the answer is yes, and we're looking into it. So yeah, that's it. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, essentially we want to increase this liquidity as much as possible. And once we have NFTs that have more utility, I think the liquidity will come naturally. Because, you know, if I want to combine two items, I'm going to have to purchase something, or I'm going to have to like buy something off someone, no matter the cost, to kind of like merge them in. Right now, it's a bit more difficult with like these unique art projects where they don't have utility and you can't really justify buying them because it's speculative. But as more utility NFTs come into the market, the liquidity, I think, will naturally increase as well.
So just related to that, your business model from the early content that you basically play the role of a market maker. In that sense.
In many ways, yeah, we're trying to do whatever we can to increase the liquidity, and that's usually what a market maker would do, like, you know, traditional market. Yeah, so we do play that role, and we're also trying to really heavily focus on kind of like coaching some projects as well, like how do you create a successful NFT project, or, you know, like a game or a blockchain company, because we see so many projects come through, right? Like, so we see what works, we see what doesn't work. So what we're trying to do is, if you launch on Immutable X, how can we make your project even more successful than if you launch somewhere else where you wouldn't get that support. So that's something we're really interested in and something we're exploring a lot more as well.
Do you have a contact person for doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can put you in touch with like our business development team, and yeah, they can help you through that process. That's it. Cool. Then we've also got our own marketplace as well. It's going to get a massive revamp soon. In this marketplace, so you can trade gas free. There's still some like transaction costs, but they're like way lower than the gas fees. So then essentially, once you get your assets on here, you can trade or buy assets in ERC20s or ETH. So USDT, our own tokens, like you can list your asset for God's tokens and buy them for God's tokens. So you can do a lot of things. So if your project that you're launching on Immutable X, you want to launch your own token, you can launch your own token and put the contract on Immutable X, and essentially your users will be able to purchase these assets with your token. So they don't have to purchase using ETH. And so this is going to get a massive revamp. Cool. Yeah, so that kind of ends like the intro to metaverses and Immutable presentation. And those are like my contact details if you want to get in touch or talk a bit more about NFTs, Immutable, or Metaverse. And I'm not sure how we're going for time, but like.
Yes, we still have more time. So if you got any question, just ask.
Any questions?
So my daughter can go on and start earning money straight away.
For Gods on Chains? Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
And
put it to work tonight.
Real world, you got to be 16 to work. Now you can work
when
you're 5. So go check it out. Guilds of Guardian is coming out soon as well, and that's like hugely popular. So yeah.
Are you following that with the Axie business model as well?
I don't know too much of like in depth of Axie. However, I do know that like the guild system, how that works with their managers and players. And I'm close friends with like essentially the founder of one of the startups who's investing in guilds. So yeah, we're definitely thinking about it.
Could you put to some traction figures, whether we can share like number of projects coming in on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis, and transaction volume, development?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got a pipeline of self-service users, and we've also got a pipeline of like AAA massive companies like TikTok, Activision, that kind of stuff as well. And I think just on the self-serve side alone, I think we've got like a few hundred or like close to 1,000 like contracts that have like registered interest. And right now we're like building all the features to convert them. I think in like when we first launched, we had 1 collection, and in the last couple of months, it's gone up to like 114 on the marketplace. And a bunch of them are currently in the integration process. So in the next few months, you're going to see like we've probably reached like the 300, 500 collections on the marketplace.
What does a collection mean on the market?
Yeah, so a collection is kind of like a grouping of assets based on like what that metaverse is. So like, for example,
One developer operator or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I mean, they can create multiple collections if they want to. So I think the Guild of Guardians, if you go to our marketplace, you'll see like Guild of Guardians Heroes, Guild of Guardians something else. So you're kind of free to explore how you want to do that. We've also got Booty Crows and Baby Crows as well. So Baby Crows was an airdrop for people who held Booty Crows. So yeah, you can figure out how you want to play around with that collection. But it's kind of like essentially a grouping of assets. You can choose how you want to group them. Because each collection has a separate contract address, and you can decide where you want to pick the those. Ideally, like the metadata structure is like fairly similar, but it's not necessary.
So you had about 140 collections, you said?
So there's about, I think 120 on the marketplace now. I think there's a couple hundred more that are testing in Robson, and then like even more, like over 500 who have registered interest and haven't gone through the pipeline yet. But the graph is like almost like vertical for us at the moment, and it's like great for investors. So, so you know, yeah, it's very vertical. It's going up, and yeah, we're kind of learning and adapting to the growth as well, because it's beyond what we what we could have expected. So yeah, it's really cool.
Do you reject any projects because of lack of requirements kind of thing? Or?
We try not to. So like pretty much most projects will like get approved, especially when the self-serve API goes live. Then you could register a collection if you want to, and it could be a blank collection. It could be anything. We do draw the line for like things like child pornography and what's it called? Like glorification of like really nasty stuff like violence. That being said, that stuff is still on the protocol. Like we're not touching that at all. We just don't show it in our marketplace. So the protocol is decentralized, and you can jump into the IMX Discord and talk about it if you want, and voice your opinions. We also launched our governance on Snapshot as well recently, so you can vote on the proposals or make a proposal yourself as well. But yeah, general rule is we try to keep the protocol as decentralized as possible. But for the marketplace, which is a separate thing to the protocol, we only really draw the line at the moment of like those two things I mentioned.
What are things that are clearly scammy?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like we've had collections that minted fake versions of like real NFTs and tried to pass it off as the real NFT. So it's kind of a tricky solution because if we mark the collection as verified, then sometimes it can come across to the community as like not as decentralized or like as a central authority deciding what's real and what isn't. And then so we try to let everything through, but if the community is speaking out about the scams and stuff, maybe we hide it from our own marketplace. So it's still on the protocol, but we can make the choice in our own marketplace to say like hide it.
When you were saying some people are some projects are being converted, do you mean a pipeline of sales conversion, or did you mean there were actually contracts on Ethereum, for example, they're converting to?
Yeah, so essentially right now, before self-service is like fully launched on mainnet, there's like a form that you can fill in your details on, and then like you can go through the process of launching on the marketplace. But when the self-service API launches on mainnet, you can actually just use the API and go and register your contract. Yeah, so essentially the pipeline was who has filled out the form, who has tested in Robson, and then who's on the marketplace. But soon you can just go straight to Robson and mainnet.
When you say soon, how soon is soon?
Like Q1 next year.
Awesome.
Yeah. Q1 next year.
Okay. Thank you, Clement, for such an interesting project. Also, Clement is sponsoring our event for the drinks and food. We have it later. So we have 5 minutes break, and then we have another interesting project given by Jerry from Mestre. Okay, have a break.
No worries.
Yeah. 哦，还有一个是有吃饭，两年没吃饭，
咱们那个荧光笔不是那个笔呢？不是那个激光笔。
激光笔我没有找到，我上次还没找到。
你不是吃已经开了，开玩笑吗？还有，操！为什么有 YouTube？ 操！干嘛？没有。年纪大了。不是我拿回家，一个完全不像饿的人，真的饿着了。今天吃饭。哎，这是我的水吗？这是我再拿一个吧。我感觉我至少喝了。
写个名字，你把它放在一个特别的位置上。
不是我都不记得是我。
给你放在是什么？
我把它撕开这个，因为我来搞。哎，那个你去多拍点照片，这种沟通的时候也多拍点。
Hey, Hibbert, just want to say hi. I'm James. Jacob.
Oh, finally.
How are you?
Oh, no. Yo, this last time. Oh, yes. Actually, we will use building.
Yeah, but like so I've been in the space for a while. I was with Crypto.com, so I've recently left them. And yeah, I'm very big on crypto advocacy. I went to Vietnam for 2 years to do crypto stuff. I built up like a really big community there, teach people about blockchain, crypto, that kind of thing.
What we have done in the past 4 years.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, happy to collaborate. I think it's a time where it's like there's a lot of interest in crypto. Like finally, it was very nice for me to see. It's like 4 or 5 years ago in Australia, people are still very anti-crypto. Still they are like they are scam, like everything is like scam. It's not scam, but like they just don't understand it.
That is opportunity.
Yeah. I think the banks are scam. Like you put your money in the bank, they lend out for 20%. They give you 0.5. That's a scam. Like, but they go, oh no, it's safe. I put money in the bank.
And we did a survey from the meeting. Anyone heard of NFT? So there's only progress.
I've just been trading NFT, man. Like, I sell like I've just been selling JPEGs, and it's like I buy one for $200, I sell it for $10,000. I'm not kidding, man. Like I just buy myself. Who's buying these JPEGs? I don't know. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Have you done much NFT trading yourself?
Not so much. I give it to my mother.
But what are you pushing like?
One of the main ones, the Bitcoin.
Yeah, like lots of really good projects.
Exactly, that's so many. I have to take time. Research.
Yeah, it's true. Like I'm being naive. I have to admit, like Bitcoin, it's a bit slower now. They're kind of like they're like a big corporation, Now all the startups are doing their work there too, it's going to be marketplace. It's hard to do.
So we will start the next hosting first, and then I will check it. Hello guys, we are going to start again.
Hello. Serena. I'm not sure what
Hello guys. We still have another interesting project to share, so okay, have a seat, please. Yeah, with something. Okay, that's okay. Yeah. Okay. So next we will have Jerry to introduce the green Bitcoin mining in Australia. So you must be very interested. So let's welcome Jerry.
Thank you everyone for making the time and very thanks Clement for the very interesting topic. So I'm gonna talk about today is it's a crypto solar power project. So you guys might have heard about crypto mining before. How many of you exposed or have knowledge of crypto mining? All right, that's a third of. So how many of you want to double your money? So yeah, Yeah, so the whole purpose is, the crypto mining is a very profitable business and investment as well, especially at the moment, Bitcoin price at a relatively high level. It's not a already 20% down from the all-time high, but still a really high level. So a lot of criticism about the crypto mining is the crypto mining is self-consumed, 0.6% of the whole world the power consumption. So that is in my head some different opinion on the environmental side of story. So, but we want to change this whole image. We want to utilize the green power and also other available green energy source to make it really greener Bitcoins or the other digital currencies. So I'll try to make it less technical, which has been the case last time. So basically, we are positioning ourselves as at a crossroad of digital asset and the infrastructure management form. So we want to balance the virtual, which is crypto side of opportunity, and also with the traditional asset people can touch, feel like a land, like solar farm, and a very long-term type of investment. But on the top of that, so we also will leverage on the new available opportunity on the carbon credits. So also it's pretty much wanted to build a whole system, manage the entire crypto mining life cycle. So that including the design, construction, everything. So our unique team have a different background from cover both financial services, asset management, crypto mining itself. We got a partner has been last 5 years in China, own 200,000 machines. As you know, probably the China are trying to push the industry out of China. That's which is good timing for us. So the investment itself, you can see that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a multiple revenue stream from this investment. So let's say for example tomorrow, too bad BTC crash and drop like another 20%, 30%, even down to zero. Our business still profit, it still can run itself. That based on that worst case scenario. So we got a data center not purely just for the crypto mining itself. It can be used for various purposes. To name a few, machine learning, AI, co-location, other things. So solar farm itself it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean we own the whole facility, but we co-own the project or we're part of ownership. So solar farm is a long-term investment for superannuation. Super fund manager love it because they give a very sustainable fixed return for long period of time. We talk about 25 years minimum, but it's not limited to that. So we've got other managed service on top of that to generate revenue. To name a few, yes. The purpose is trying to reduce the whole the portfolio, the risk of the whole portfolio. Doesn't matter how big we are building the size of a project. So at the moment, we are this is for first few solar farm we are looking at. You might notice there's some individual land contributing side that make it even more interesting. I'll talk to you if you're interested on that side. And actually, there are some opportunity to bring the fund evolution into by leveraging the wind and the solar farms. Also storage. Maybe you guys have got the Elon Musk talk about a lot about the storage sites. So one of the Australia crypto project called Power Ledger, they are able to utilize the distributed ledger platform for the renewable energy to distribute and potentially can be off the grid in a lot of areas. So that I'll quickly run through this because it's start getting a little bit more technical. So basically, we are building the foundation based on the solar farm. Then we add a data center. We add other things into the whole solutions. So we have potential to buy or lease the land, depends on the type of the investment available for us at that time. Potentially, we look at the second stage or third stage. Initially, we want to just lease the land, then gradually we own partial or the whole the ownership of the land. So as I mentioned, carbon credit could be one of the reasons we take the ownership of the land to make the long-term investments. So what's in for us? We're pretty much a solution platform provider for the whole crypto mining, the whole life cycle of the mining, plus the solar farm and other things, other things. So virtually we will take partial or whole ownership of the land, solar farm, to have a more asset into our portfolio to provide more buffer into any events like the crypto the price crash or any other things. But we do have a hedging solution in place to manage the volatility of Bitcoin. So this is just an example of as a solar farm how you can get the investment back. That will reduce the that was based on a few years back the interest rate was too high. This is just another statistic. We're looking at the solar farm plus data center operation. A lot of people might think yes, everyone can run your own crypto mining even from your home. So you can have like a 5 or 10 machines in your backyard somewhere. You can run it. But in reality, it's very difficult. It's very generate a lot of the hot air and if you during the winter might be a good thing, right? But summertime will be very hard to manage. You might add your air conditioning of your build. Yeah, that's some the solar project. We are at a different stage. Yeah, so that sort of at the moment we for this specific project we offer the convertible notes. So you can get a fixed return on the investment plus the potential going to the share structure. So that will, as I said at the beginning, this is a very profitable business. We already have seen 2 Australia companies being listed within 2 years. So just in terms of return on investment, if you look at like a midterm 3 years time frame, that will be over 30% on ROI. So we do have a smaller size of investment vehicle available. So that would be around 100K to start with. So that available for the wholesale investors. But the next stage we might open to more smaller size of investments. Let's say, for example, 5 machinery that sort of size, as a start with. So this is our team. So as I said, Jojo herself has been running the crypto mining since 5 years ago, and the size of the operation is over 200,000 machines. So if you know the industry, you will know this is we count as a top 10 miner in China. So at the moment, Jojo is based in Dubai, so she will say hi to everyone just during our break. And also we invited Dubai representative of the government to give us a few words. So as you know, as you can see, we got a combination of different background people. Solar dedicated a company doing solar panel and battery setting. Victor Zhang helping us on the funding side, and we've got a energy service partner as well. So yeah, at the moment we already secured 25 million from investor for the commitments. So as you can see, we set a aggressive target to eventually down to net zero carbon. Well, it's very profitable business. 80% margin on the cash operation margin. So, but having said that, that requires a lot of investment initially to achieve that efficiency. Yeah, that's some advantage that plan we are looking at in next few years. So the site will be based in US, Australia, Canada, vice versa. So yeah. For people familiar with this money economy, so that will help you to understand the sort of things. Yeah, that is carbon. The long-term ESG target for us. We eventually will have a portion of solar energy generate power, and gradually will increase to 100%. Then that is eventually the net zero target.
So Jerry, you were saying to list. Where would you get to, let's say, the megawatt value before you would list? Would it be that 300 to say 400 megawatt in relation, therefore the revenue you generate to then be able to list the business, or is it just based on the actual revenue based on the coins to your listing?
Good question. I haven't touched on the listing side, and so I guess I just want to repeat your question, make sure I understand the question. Yeah. So you said the listing is based on.
Yeah, you said you're listing, 2 to 3 years, so therefore you're looking at what, say, the revenue based off 300 of say 400 megawatts, something like that, to then what you'd be able to pull out in coins would then get the business worth.
That is we use the term as how much power we consume. That will correlate with the coin.
Yes.
The coin we can mine from that. So that roughly what tells you how much Bitcoin we can, how many Bitcoins we can generate from that. So if that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I already touched on that team, and actually our team is growing very fast. So actually, the government has put into some incentive for people who utilize solar panel, solar power to do the crypto mining. So potentially there will be 10% the tax incentive for that. We're also work very closely with indigenous group. So that will give us a very unique advantage on that. So yeah, that's pretty much on this side. Any questions so far? I'll just yeah, just quickly run through how you can get involved on this very unique, very profitable the opportunity. So we, as you can tell, we have a financial service license. So give us we can run our own management investments, and so that at the moment it's focused on the wholesale client only. So we just we think that that's appropriate to start that way, and then we can gradually to reduce that to smaller size of investments. So we are the first crypto mining service to provide this sort of facility, and it goes regulated, and also the environmental friendly way. So the total fund for this first stage, we're looking at actually this should be the Aussie dollar for some reason. It's US dollars. So we're looking at 100 million as the first stage. We already have operation in Victoria. So the first time we're looking at have a 40,000 mining machine capacity. So at the moment, we are gradually adding to the machine. Some machine already start to operate. If you're interested, I can show you some video. Last time we were in Melbourne. So we're also looking at the Queensland as they are, as you know, probably very interesting place for the solar panel as well. So yeah, the second stage we will look at the much larger the size of raising. It should be Aussie dollar as well. Aussie dollar 500 million for 80,000 machine. We're talking about most advanced machine available. So that will both consume less power, generate more the computer power. So that's roughly, again, that should be Australian dollar. That should start with 100 million, 100,000, sorry, 100,000, and for the wholesale investor. So return on investment target is over 30%. So the minimum we look at least 6 months. Because as you probably know, it's less liquid the market because we need to set up the whole facilities and the revenue for there are some very flexible way we can work with investors or the miners, for example. If you if you have a connection with some miners to join force with us, we're happy to talk to them. So they're very unique and flexible way of working. Yeah, that's some advantage. So just to name a few, we mentioned quite a lot in the previous slide. So that's we have the
起码我们掌握了一项技能。